Stormborn by Black K. Cat. Chapter 2. Trader's Exposition. Exposition. The first section of a movement written in sonata form, introducing the melodies and themes. 12 years ago. You know about the demon fox being sealed, right? Naruto is only 12, only a student, and a rather poor one at that. But he knows. In this, at least, the voice is no help. Gone silent the way Naruto has noticed it usually does when dealing with things from the last few years. So he pauses, watching Mizuki warily. He knows the shadow clone technique now, which is a bit of a comfort, and while it's still not as comfortable as his storm clones, it's at least an ace in the hole. Not that he needs much of one, he thinks, watching Mizuki grin and sneer and posture, while his mind races ahead and calculates odds. They're good. Because Naruto might just think they're dreams, might just dismiss what he learns there, but he still learns it. He might be a Genin, but somewhere tucked away beneath the everyday thoughts, the knowledge of a Kage is sleeping, just waiting to be called upon. A great Kage, even among his peers in Naruto, Genin or not, has lived 2 lives. One in the day, village prankster and pariah, and one at night, genius and favorite child for all that he's still an orphan, still a loudmouthed and impulsive brat. And then there are the flashes, the little snatches of time where he is the Uzukage, strong and proud. 2 lives, overlapping and tied together by Naruto himself, and even if they're just dreams, they still have sway, influence, and that's enough to push these odds strongly in his favor. And then Mizuki laughs at him, sneers gleefully, and says, "The rule that says no one is allowed to talk to you about how you are the Kyuubi no Kitsune." Mito-sama. Naruto thinks automatically, and for once, he can't tell if it's him or Arashi. Maybe there's no difference between them at all, really. Just memories. And this one? Jinchuriki. He thinks, and that explains everything. Everything he's ever wondered about, and then more besides. All the stares and whispers and children pulled away by the hand, all the cold looks and glares and little bits of cruelty that he's never quite been able to understand. The word resounds in his head like a bell, like the bell that would chime across Uzushio to tell the hour. And surely, if this is true, because he knows that word, Jinchuriki, knows it well as he knows Mito's name and understands all that it stands for, all that it implies, and if what he remembers of that is true, then maybe everything else is true as well. That thought is breathtaking. I killed. He thinks in faint front horror, remembering bodies on the tide, blood staining the sea as his storm clouds gathered and the ocean raged at his will. I killed them all. I've never killed anyone, but I killed an entire army. What does that make me? Then Iruka is in front of him, bleeding, injured, dying. And all Naruto can think is, this is my precious person. This person is everything to me. I've already lost everyone else in that dream world because they're never there when I wake up. And I won't let you take Iruka-sensei from me too. He casts one last quick glance at Iruka's face and then gathers his feet under himself and bolts. Distance, and the opportunity to fight. And if he comes out of this alive, he's going to practice every single one of those jutsus from his dreams in the real world, no matter how many people they killed. Practice until they're coming out his ears. And then he'll never be caught off guard like this again. Never have to risk losing one of his only precious people again. Never. Not the way he did in the dreams, to fire and blood and sword, with Naruto himself driven back from the front lines and cornered, cut down with treachery and ruthlessness. Never, he swears to himself and runs. Mizuki chases Iruka until he realizes his mistake, and then... "You're right," Iruka says, and Naruto freezes, ice coalescing in his chest. But Iruka meets Mizuki's eyes, stubborn and strong, and continues. The demon fox would do that, but Naruto is different. I've already acknowledged him as one of my best students. Maybe he isn't the hardest worker, and he's clumsy and no one accepts him, but he already knows what it is to feel pain inside your heart. He isn't the demon fox. Just one person acknowledging it. One person out of a whole village seeing it, but isn't that enough? A flying kick practiced so many times with Kagami that it's practically muscle memory knocks the windmill shuriken from Mizuki's hand and hurls him to the ground, and Naruto stands over him looking down. Don't! he says viciously, "Touch Iruka-sensei! I'll kill you!" And maybe it's Arashi in his head, even though the whisper is silent. Or maybe it's all Naruto. Or maybe there's actually no difference between them at all. But Naruto brings his hands up, fingers forming signs that are simultaneously strange and familiar, and his body splits in two. The clone leaps back until it's right in front of Iruka, even as the original Naruto drops to one knee, slamming a hand down on the ground. "Suiton!" he growls out and feels the chakra rise like a wave. "Stormy upheaval!" The waterfall that surges up, around, and behind him, then leaps for Mizuki, leaves absolutely no room to avoid it. Only Naruto, the summoner, and Iruka, sprawled right at his storm clone's back, is safe. When it clears, and the water vanishes back into chakra, seeps into the ground, and is gone again, Naruto rises to his feet and surveys the result. Mizuki is completely still on the ground, and from this distance, Naruto can't quite tell if he's still breathing or not. Part of him, the part that remembers war and bodies and blood on the tide, hopes that he is. But the rest of him, which thinks of precious people and Iruka unable to defend himself, doesn't really care. "You okay, Iruka-sensei?" the clone asks, stretching out a hand to the Chunin. Iruka blinks at it, and then at his hand, and nods slowly. He takes it, letting the clone pull him to his feet, and simply watches as the Bunshin offers him a grin and a sloppy salute, then leaps up the nearest tree trunk and into the air. A ripple of chakra, a thought, and Naruto turns his face up just in time to watch the clone rise above the treetops and detonate in a surge of water and wind. That should be enough to get the attention of anyone looking for him, if the earlier waterfall wasn't. It's only then that it goes over and checks Mizuki, who's still breathing, if a little battered. He winces a bit because that was an A-rank jutsu the Uzukage always used, and probably overkill against a Chunin Academy instructor. "Oops," he mutters, but doesn't let it stop him from dropping to his knee and binding Mizuki's hands and feet with the man's own ninja wire. Iruka watches him, dark eyes warm, and once Naruto is done, he calls softly, "Naruto, come over here. There's something I want to give you." The Hitayate is a well-remembered weight, skin warm and a little battered, but all the dearer for it. Naruto reaches up to touch it, traces his fingers over the stylized leaf engraved in the center, and closes his eyes. It's not the spiral he halfway feels it should be, but it's right regardless, because there's no life, no point in time where he isn't a shinobi. No time when he can't protect those precious to him the way he did tonight. Never. And certainly not now. And if he has to kill for that, so be it. He'll never like it, never accept it unless all other avenues are exhausted. But he remembers soldiers at the gates, civilians slaughtered in the streets, and blood pooling in the gutters. Remembers his people at the mercy of a pitiless invader, and knows anything it takes because they're precious to me. "How did you do that?" Iruka much later, when they're sitting in Ichiraku with their ramen in front of him. "That jutsu, it wasn't a genjutsu, was it? How did you know it?" Naruto doesn't freeze, but it's close. "I read it on a scroll in the library." He half lies through a mouthful of ramen, hoping to disguise the way his voice wants to crack. It's kind of true. He read it as Arashi, and the scroll was from Saihara Sensei's personal library. But I never tried it before. And then that forbidden scroll had a couple of jutsus, and I tried them, and after that, I think my chakra control was finally good enough. Iruka watches him for a long moment, clearly debating something. "And that clone? I've never seen anything like that before, Naruto." He grins at that, wide and proud. Because Naruto or Arashi, it doesn't matter. The storm clone is his, completely and full, and no one else has ever managed anything similar. I made that up! Isn't it awesome? But whenever you want me to do a clone in class, I kept wanting to do that one, and since it explodes, I figured it wouldn't be good. So I kept messing up. There's no response to that, but Iruka ruffles his hair and smiles at him, orders each another round of ramen, and Naruto assumes the subject is done with, and Iruka's curiosity satisfied. "His own invention?" The Hokage murmurs around his pipe, and his eyes aren't on Iruka, but on the portrait of his successor that hangs on the wall. "An entirely new type of clone."
That's more than impressive for a boy of 12. And he managed an A-rank jutsu without ever having attempted it before. Perhaps he is his father's son after all.
I don't understand it, Iruka says helplessly, spreading his hands. I've been looking back through all his work at the academy, and it's strange. There are some things, like kunai and shuriken and senbon, which he's amazing at. And on some of his tests, the hardest questions have the right answers, while the easy ones are left blank. I thought he was a kinesthetic learner or something like that, but... He trails off, shaking his head. I don't know, Kage-sama. Sarutobi closes his eyes and leans back in his chair, considering the situation. Naruto has apparently inherited his father's chakra control along with his mother's chakra reserves, and that is a formidable combination. There's some form of genius in there too, apparently, to be able to use an A-rank jutsu after having only ever seen it in a scroll. But then, of course, there is the fact that Naruto failed to pass his graduation exam 3 times, and only passed this time because of extenuating circumstances, and that is confusing. Perhaps it's the fox's influence coming through, but given the boy's actions tonight, his wild defense of the only teacher to acknowledge him, Sarutobi thinks that unlikely.
Thank you, Iruka,
he says at length.
Go home and rest. You've more than earned it after yesterday.
He doesn't watch the Chunin leave, but turns his gaze back to Minato's portrait, thoughtful and a little sad.
I wonder,
he murmurs into the still air.
I wonder just how much of you is in that child, Minato. More than I suspected, clearly.
Very little, actually, in the end. Naruto is, and always will be, far more his mother's son. In the end, it's actually Kakashi who gives him both the idea and the proof he needs, unwittingly as it is. They're standing in front of the memorial, staring at the names as their maybe sensei walks away, and Sakura and Sasuke are both watching him go. But Naruto's not. Naruto can't tear his eyes away from those neatly carved lines, those names so carefully set into stone. From one name in particular, which feels like a shot to the heart just to look at. Uchiha Kagami, it reads. And all Naruto could see for an endless, breathless moment is dark hair cut at chin length, dark eyes forever holding a spark of amusement at the world around them, a warm smile and a pale scar on a stubborn jaw. All he can hear is a relieved idiot and a cheerful Arashi, there you are. All he can feel is a friendly tap on the shoulder, a tight hug, the heat of fire set against his wind and water, and he closes his eyes and leans back against the post he's been tied to. Thoughts spinning. They pass, of course. Naruto didn't expect a difference, but as soon as he manages to get himself free of the ropes, he doesn't pause to celebrate. Instead, he heads for the main library, sneaking in past the women at the front desk, who has a tendency to sneer at him, and then heading for the shinobi records. There are a lot of shinobi, and a lot of Uchiha clan members, but there aren't all that many named Kagami, and only one written with the kanji Naruto's Kagami used to spell his name. The scroll is old and dusty, obviously long untouched, but Naruto hunkers down in the aisle with it and rubs the grime off as best he can, leans forward to try and decipher the tiny, neat lettering in the low light. Uchiha Kagami, Chief Ambassador to Uzushio Gakare by appointment of Saindame Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, in service to Saindame Uzukage, Uzumaki, Arashi. The date of his death is at the beginning of the Second Shinobi War, and the few sparse details are more than enough to make Naruto's blood run cold. Killed in an ambush by Shinobi of Suna in the process of attempting to reach Konoha with Uzushio's request for assistance against Kiri. Naruto sits back on his heels, trying to keep his breath steady. Just like his dream, with those ships on the horizon, an army of shinobi coming to invade and destroy Kirigakure's might, and for all Uzushio's strength, it was a small village relatively, and Whirlpool Country was equally as tiny. They were isolated and alone, even with allies on the mainland, trapped between the vicious might of Kiri and the cold indifference of Kumo. Kagami died, trying to bring aid, and by the time anyone realized it, Uzushio had fallen too. The paper crinkles under Naruto's fingers where he's gripping it too tightly, and he blows out a careful breath. He can almost remember it. The city's fall, its complete destruction at the hands of the Mizukage and his best shinobi. He'd try harder, but he's not sure he wants to remember. Not that. Not death and destruction and tragedy when for so long his dreams of that place have been peace and beauty and happiness. But they're not just dreams, are they? Those jutsus, those things that he can never bring himself to practice, they really have killed people, haven't they? Naruto pauses, still staring at the name written on the scroll, and then he takes a deep breath and pushes to his feet. The histories of the various countries are 3 rows over and arranged alphabetically. He finds Uzushio without trouble, a handful of thick books and some scrolls, and picks the first one at random before settling down to read. Because he's lived it through Arashi's eyes, whoever Arashi is. You, the little voice whispers behind his thoughts. I'm you, don't you see? I always have been. Lived it and breathed it and sweated and bled for the Uzushio that exists in his dreams. But he doesn't know anything. Not really. He's aware of the little things, like how the market burns with jewel-bright colors in the afternoon sun, how the streets feel rough beneath his feet, how the birds rise in sweeping patterns when the storm winds start to blow. And sure, he knows sections of history, bits of trivia, the ninjutsu and the taijutsu, and the way Saihara-sensei fought with their sword in one hand and a whip in the other, but not the cold, bare facts laid out in books. And somehow that's the kind of information Naruto wants right now. Not blood and breath and living people, but a historian's words through a lens of time. Because he remembers their unit in class on the 5 great nations and the countless smaller countries. But never in there, never anywhere was Uzushio mentioned. There was never a class on the shining city by the sea, or on a man called the Storm God. No mention made of war with Kiri, or the fall of an entire shinobi village. No word, no thought, and Kagami died for this, for a city lost to time, and Naruto can't stand that. Kagami died. They all died, his people, or fled, vanishing into the press of life in the other nations because their own was so utterly destroyed. And that makes Naruto or Arashi, or both of them, just ache. I was happy there, he thinks, staring down at the book in his lap. Uzushio made me happy. I love Iruko-sensei and Hokage Jiji and Sakura-chan. Maybe Kakashi-sensei too. I can probably tolerate Sasuke even. But I'm not happy here, am I? Not the way I was there. He shakes off the thought, but it lingers. Stays with him even when he staggers up to the front desk under a 3-foot stack of books. It doesn't go away. Not out in the sunshine or when the moon rises or when he's meeting his team in the morning for training. It hovers and lingers and stays. Honestly, Naruto doesn't even try to drive it away. Naruto is erratic, Kakashi thinks, watching the blonde boy bounce his way down to the bridge. Kakashi himself is perched up in a tree, wanting to get a better feel for the team dynamics. He remembers yesterday, when they had their test. Naruto had been the first to rush forward, the only one to stand out in the open and challenge him directly. His taijutsu had been unexpected. Not Academy standard style. Not a mishmash of 20 different things like he'd get from just watching other shinobi practice, but different. Not familiar at all, but clearly a distinctive style. Clearly well practiced. It hadn't helped, of course, not against his Jonin, but for the class's dead last student, it had definitely been a cut above what Kakashi expected. And then tossing him in the river was a bit of a mistake, possibly, given the report from that incident with the trainer Mizuki. He'd used a Suiton jutsu that night, summoned without any nearby source of water and strong enough to completely incapacitate a Chunin. But Kakashi had looked at the loud-mouthed, brightly colored exterior and made assumptions. Written that success off as a fluke and completely underestimated the boy just the way he always did Obito. And like Obito in those last moments, Naruto had proven just how bad an idea that was. Suiton! Tornado of water! Definitely a bad idea, Kakashi thinks with a soft chuckle, rubbing at the lump on the side of his head. Not strong enough to take out a Jonin, not yet, but with practice, it will be. Practice and time and opportunity. He likes this team a little more already. Sasuke watches Naruto, and always has. They're similar, after all. Not the same, but perhaps the next best thing. Even with Naruto's loudness and boisterous cheer. Even with his strange fumbles when Sasuke knows he's actually rather capable, even with his odd distracted air at times, as though he's listening to something no one else can hear. That's a powerful jutsu, Kakashi says mildly, when they're sparring and Naruto blasts through a tree with a combination of water and wind that even a Chunin shouldn't have been able to manage. Naruto just laughs it off, rubbing the back of his head and looking away. I saw it in a scroll, he says cheerfully, then runs off to fawn over Sakura like he's some sort of mindless fool. That's not the standard academy style, Kakashi says, watching over the top of his book as Naruto knocks Sasuke on his butt with a taijutsu combination Sasuke has never seen before. Naruto makes a disgusted face. You didn't say we had to use the academy style, he protests. Kakashi-sensei, I suck at that. Can't I use mine? And Sasuke remembers spars in class, beating Naruto every time. And he wonders because there's nothing else to do. Not when Naruto can walk up trees and twist water and air to his will. Not when his moments of idiocy are interrupted by pure genius. Near perfect chakra control, Kakashi has told them, and has promised that he'll teach Sasuke and Sakura at some point. But rather than gloating, Naruto looks away from them into the distance as though he's seeing someone else entirely. Naruto stops wearing orange 3 days after they pass as a team. Instead, he wears blue. Not Uchiha Baby, but indigo and sky blue and twilight blue paired with white and black and soft dove gray that spiral from his jumpsuit painstakingly stitched onto every item. He trains as much as Sasuke, daybreak to dusk, and Sasuke will sometimes meet him walking home, both of them exhausted and battered, but satisfied. They're rivals still, and even Sasuke will acknowledge that, but it's easier, simple. Sasuke doesn't want a friend, not now, not when he still has to kill his brother, but a rival he can manage. That's fine, surely. Beating Naruto with his Suiton and Futon and strange but devastatingly quick taijutsu, with his mindless determination paired with brief flashes of overwhelming brilliance, will be good preparation for facing Itachi. Not perfect, but good enough, perhaps. And if sometimes, when it's dark and the shadows are long in his apartment, if he rolls over in bed until he's facing away from the window and then carefully, cautiously touches his lips, remembering just for half of a second, well, no one has to know.